I'm not going to go into a real big, long, elaborate introduction. It is my honor to introduce Kenneth Walker. I've known Kenneth for more years than I care to even think, but over 40, and our families have merged into one complete unit. Anytime that there's a function, we're breaking bread together, we've laughed together, we've cried together, and I've learned a lot about the exploits of his father and his cohorts through that 40-year friendship. This is a remarkable story. Kenneth asked me to photo document it for him and to go along for the ride. And it's nothing short of amazing. I hope that you enjoy it. After it concludes, there'll be an opportunity for question and answers. Mr. Aubrey Matthews has a presentation back here in the back that deals with the Tuskegee Airmen and their exploits on a broader palette. So without any further ado, I will give you Kenneth Walker.
Good morning, everybody. First Baptist Church, thanks for having me. Welcome to you. Welcome to all the guests and my family members, relatives that are here today. We purposely waited till you guys got your food so you won't have to heckle me because your mouth will be full of food. I'm very glad to share this story with you today. I'm going to share my father's story, his legacy, and then I'm going to share another story which is considered to be the best kept secret of World War II. So this is a two-part series that I'm going to share with you. Again, my name is Kenneth Walker, and I'm the proud son of a Tuskegee Airman. Before we get started, we just had a late change to our plan. I want to share a video with you, so enjoy.
Hello, my name is James Alonzo Walker. I was born in 1919 in Manning, South Carolina. I am famous because I'm a Tuskegee Airman. First, let me tell you about my childhood. I grew up with two younger brothers, Gordon and Melford. I grew up on a farm in South Carolina. African American people were only allowed to go to school until 10th grade, so I moved to Baltimore to finish high school. During the middle of my life, I became a Tuskegee Airman. My plane got shot down and I landed in enemy territory. I was missing for 39 days before I was rescued. I flew 102 missions. Later in my life, I won 7 medals. I was the first African American banker at Wells Fargo. I volunteered to build houses and there was an apartment named after me. Finally, I made a positive difference in this world because I saved lives and helped African Americans get into the military. In my life, I showed the core value of perseverance because when I was rescued, I returned to my missions immediately instead of going home. I also fought racism. Thank you for listening. I hope you take the time to read more about me.
Stand up, Jaden. That's my grandson. Okay, the presentation is done. I don't need to go any further. I'm proud of what he did there. So my father's was born in Manning, South Carolina, to two college graduates. His father, James Allen, was a brick mason, and his mother, Daisy, was a school teacher at segregated black schools in Manning, South Carolina. In the 1930s, there were only 10 grades, as Jaden said, for Negroes in South Carolina. So my father relocated to Baltimore, finished the 11th and 12th grade in Baltimore, graduated from high school, and enrolled in Hampton Institute. He attended Hampton Institute, where he majored in building construction, and he graduated in 1941 from Hampton Institute. While there, a girlfriend of his, don't know which one because he had a few, challenged him to take the civil pilots training program. So he did that at Hampton Institute, passed it, and got his license. And about that time, as you know, December 41 was Pearl Harbor and the war. We entered the war, and they started doing some recruiting. So he put in his application for to enter what we call the Noble Experiment. That Noble Experiment was to see if Negroes could fly, or better yet, to see if they couldn't fly, to prove that they couldn't fly. While waiting to be accepted into the program, he actually took an advanced civilian training program at Tuskegee Airfield. And in 1942, he received his advanced civilian pilots and was accepted into the Tuskegee program later that year. He was in a 9-month black pilots training program, and in 1943 he graduated second in his class. Of course, there was only 3 people in the class, so he did pretty good. Decorated as a second lieutenant. No, actually there were 43 people in the class. 24 of the people washed out. Now, I don't know if everybody here knows what that means. If you wash out, you fail the pilot program, but that does not mean you get removed from the Army. Those people became engineers, technicians, mechanics, air traffic controllers. There were so many other things that we needed that they could do. So 19 graduated from the program, and my father actually was second in the class. The class was designated as 43E, the year and the name of the class. So Jimmy, as he was now called by his colleagues, finished his overseas training in Michigan, and upon completion, him and his classmates shipped out to Italy to join the 332nd Fighter Group, a segregated fighter group that you'll learn more about later with Aubrey. His was the 302nd Fighter Squadron. In Italy, they joined with the 332nd Fighter Group. Initial assignments as part of that group was with the 12th Air Force, where they started strafing missions. And they also covered the Army troops during the Battle of Anzio. If y'all don't know what strafing missions are, I like to call it planes, trains, and automobiles. Strafing missions is when the fighters went in, bombed trains, supply depots, armories, truck transports, anything on the ground that was enemy occupied. They were not at that time doing escorts. So after Anzio and after Jimmy and the 332nd transferred from the 12th Air Force to the 15th Air Force, they were relocated and based in a segregated air base called Ramatelli Airfield in Italy. Their primary function now was to provide B-17 and B-24 bombers escort, support to the oil fields and oil refineries of Ploiești, Romania. This area supplied over 1/3 of the fuel to the Nazi regime. So the strategy for the Allies was to take out as much as that they can to minimize the Germans' abilities to supply their war efforts. In order to accomplish this task, the 15th Air Corps had to fly over a heavily guarded German territory. They had to fly over the Balkans, Yugoslavia, Israel, and parts that were heavily occupied and controlled by the Germans. During this period with the 12th and the 15th Air Force, the 332nd flew P-39s, P-40s, P-47s. I think you'll see a lot of them in the pictures back there when you take a look. But it wasn't until the first week of July that they received the P-51C, which is that plane over there in the corner. Now they were really ready. It's like, okay, Hitler, bring it on. We got you now. So these were the fighter planes that they painted the red tails on and what they used to escort the bombers, not only to Ploetzy, but to other sites as they needed. Jimmy flew several missions over Italy, France, Germany, and Yugoslavia. Much of these areas were German controlled at the time. I want to tell you of his courage, determination, flying skills, ability, and problem solving that saved Jimmy's life. I know this story and I tell it, my grandson told it, but I want you to hear it in my father's words. So I got a script that he did during an interview, and I'm going to read it to you now. Excuse me. In July 1944, I had flown there you go. In July 1944, I had flown 80 missions already. In one of the raids to Ploetzy, Romania, I was leading the yellow flight of 4 planes. He was the squadron leader. On the way home, there was a crippled B-24, and my commander told me to cover him and stay close to him and keep enemy fires away from him. He was losing altitude all the time, and we went over an area we hadn't been briefed on. When the flak came up, 3 of my 4 planes got hit at 23,000 feet. My oil line got shot up, and I could see the gauges going down like you punch a hole at the engine, punch a hole in the windshield. Oil was all over the cockpit and windshield, and my engine caught fire. I shut off all the switches. I slipped and slid the airplane and dived to get the fire out. Fortunately, I did get it out. But when I tried to start the engine again, it was frozen. So I just rolled my plane down. Intelligence told us that the Germans would shoot you in your chute. So I glided down to a minimum altitude between 1,000 and 500 feet. Rolled the plane over, and bailed out. I was about to land on a house, but I reached up and pulled my chute and slipped the air out and landed in the garden next to the house. A couple of guys in civilian clothes with guns grabbed me and my chute. They didn't speak any English, they used sign language. And we started running across the field into a swamp. We rested there for a while, and some more people came up, and they changed escorts. They put me in the back of the 2-wheel cart and covered me with straw to hide me. The Germans were aware there was an American in the area. They knew they had shot me down. They had my airplane, but they didn't have me. We went to some encampment where I was questioned. I didn't have time to get nervous until that night. About 2 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden I started shaking, thinking about what could have happened. Tito's communist partisans and the Chetniks were fighting each other. So just to break away for a minute, during this part of the war, the Germans had brutal occupation of Yugoslavia, but and Tito was a revolutionary and Mihalovic was a revolutionary. However, they were at civil war with each other. So they had a civil war going on amongst themselves as well as they were fighting the Germans. So Tito's communist partisans and the Chetniks were fighting each other as well as the Germans. And a lot of the movement was partly because of that and partly because of the Germans. The U.S. had indoctrinated both the Chetniks and the partisans to rescue U.S. airmen. I found out later I was with the Chetniks, Mihalovic's outfit. So we had to move our location again and again and again. A couple of times I slept on straw in a barn. A couple of nights I slept under stars. Moving with different groups, after 39 days I was finally picked up by the U.S. Troop Carrier Command. There were 12 of us, both enlisted and officers, mostly from bomber crews. I was the ranking officer. Back in Italy, I thought I'd be going home, which they usually did to pilots who had been shot down. But the 332nd was short of pilots, so I was told I would be flying again, which I didn't like at all. I objected until they scheduled a court-martial. Then I went down to the flight line and took a plane up for a test. The next day I was on another mission. I flew 102 missions while I was over there. That was his story. So, Jimmy left the Air Corps after the war and registered with the reserve. He was called back to active duty when the Korean War began. And in 1950, he became the first African-American officer to have command of an unsegregated unit. Wow. He retired in 1964 while stationed at Hamilton Air Force Base. We moved to Hayward, California, where he applied at Wells Fargo Bank. When he applied at Wells Fargo Bank, he applied as a security guard because they said there was nothing else available. However, the district supervisor took a look at his credentials and offered him a banking position. My dad told him, all I know about banking is balancing a checkbook. So the supervisor told him, try us for 6 months, we can teach you the banking business. 14 years later, my father retired from Wells Fargo as one of the top loan officers in the Bay Area. My father passed away in 2004. He served God through his church, where he was their treasurer. He served the country through and with the Airmen of Tuskegee. He served his community through organizations. He served on the following boards: the Bill Campbell Bay Area chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated, Hampton Alumni Association, his alma mater, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and a nonprofit affordable housing company called Eden Housing. They built housing for low-income affordable housing people. In 2009, 5 years after he passed away, Eden Housing honored my father by dedicating a housing project in Hayward in his name. It's called Walker Landing. I want to close this segment with a scripture out of the Bible, 2 Corinthians 8, 1-15. If I can see, excuse me, my eyes on water. Just like the golf course, you know. Oh, thank you. I wasn't crying yet. All right. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. That personified my dad. That's it for now. So, if you remember during the conversation, I talked about him being captured by the Chetniks. This is a picture of my father when he returned, after he returned to Ramatelli Field. You can see the hat that he's wearing is a little different than the hat to the gentleman in the middle. That is a Chetnik Army cap. So they gave to him. So, part 2. January, February last year, I got a call from my daughter. My daughter's in the back, Kirsten. She says, Daddy, somebody called me and asked me if I was a family member of James Walker. And she goes, at first I wasn't going to answer the phone. As you guys know, in this day and age, when you don't recognize a number, you usually don't answer it. But something prompted her to answer that phone. And she forwarded that information to me. I looked on our phone, actually. We have a landline, we're old school. And, but we don't answer that phone if we don't recognize it. And we actually, it turns out that that same number was on our landline. The gentleman's name was Renko Risco. He was a board director of an organization called Halyard Foundation. So I called them, we talked a little bit, and they invited Cynthia and I to a commemoration in April in Mesa, Arizona. We thought about it and we decided to go ahead and go. So this organization has a celebration twice a year in Mesa, Arizona, and the reason they do that is there's an air museum in Mesa that houses this C-47. This C-47 is actually one of the original C-47s used to rescue the airmen in Yugoslavia that rescued my father. So it may have been that plane. That plane is still operational today. It's been modified to corporate stuff inside, but that is the actual C-47. It still operates and works today. So twice a year in April and November, they have a commemoration there in honor of Halyard, which you're about to learn more about. Okay. Yeah.
In the whirlwind of World War II, a large number of American servicemen found themselves behind enemy lines. Many failed to escape capture. Yet some, thanks to the great sacrifices of local patriots, were successfully hidden. The story of the rescue mission, codenamed Halyard, takes us back to 1944, to the war-torn kingdom of Yugoslavia, which was under brutal Nazi occupation. Approximately 500 American and Allied airmen, under a complete veil of secrecy, in close proximity to nearby German garrisons, hid for months throughout the Šumadija region in central Serbia, before making their way to the small village of Pranjani. When the opportune moment came, members of the Yugoslav army in the homeland under the command of General Dragoljub Mihailović, the local population, and the Office of Strategic Services conducted the largest and most successful rescue mission of American airmen from behind enemy lines. President Harry Truman awarded General Mihailović the Legion of Merit, the highest military decoration that can be presented to a foreign official for the essential role he played in the mission. This operation is considered as one of the most important conducted by the Office of Strategic Services, the predecessor to Central Intelligence Agency, and the U.S. Special Operations Command. Due to complex political and ideological reasons during the Cold War, this mission remained hidden from the public eye for over half a century. In 2007, after our first visit to the field where the rescue operation took place and meeting villagers who saved the American airmen, our mission was clear: to find a way to tell this story. Over the next 8 years, we were focused on developing a culture of remembrance. This included holding commemoration ceremonies, exhibits, and lectures. Also, we have been collecting historic materials and testimonies from American and Serbian veterans of the mission. In 2015, the endeavor was transformed into the Halyard Mission Foundation, and over the next 6 years, our activities have expanded significantly. Our goal remains the same: to pay tribute to the participants of the Halyard mission, to raise public awareness, and to engage with Serbian and American communities. That way, we contribute to deepening relations between our two countries and remembering the greatest generation who fought for freedom and democracy. One way to remember is to walk the footsteps of the airmen that landed in Serbia. we are developing a historic trail that marks areas of the mission's significance and allows us to travel where our forefathers did as they traversed Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. We also continue to organize exhibitions and support local communities. But above all, we are working to find and connect all the families of American airmen and their rescuers in Serbia, thus acknowledging their heroic efforts as well as strengthening U.S.-Serbian relations. All these combined goals are perhaps best reflected in the successful establishment of the Halyard Foundation Memorial on Galovica Field, just outside the village of Pranjani in central Serbia. The complex was opened in September 2020 with great support from the Serbian government. Today, it is the focal point of the descendants of World War II heroes, members of local communities, Serbian and American officials, and friends and supporters of the foundation from around the world, all gathered to pay tribute. And remember,
the Halyard Mission Foundation remains committed to telling the story of this amazing rescue operation and the important role Serbs played in its success. We invite you to join us in honoring the history that strengthens the relations between our two countries and epitomizes the shared values of our two proud nations.
The gentleman you saw at the end, Lieutenant General John Capella, is the president of the Halyard Mission Foundation. He served 24 years in the Air Force from 1989 to 2015. He actually flew B-1B bombers. He was a B-1B bomber pilot, which was a pretty immaculate tool. But in 2007, he became an attaché for the United States. And he was an attaché in Serbia and Israel. And it wasn't until he got to Serbia in 2007 that he learned about this mission. As you heard in the video, it was kept secret for 40 years. It was kept secret for political and ideological reasons. The British were infiltrated by the Russians, who we were all allies with in World War II. But the Russians gave the British misinformation about Mihailovich that got them to not support him. So the U.S. had to go in basically undercover to take care of this mission. I'm going to touch briefly on how this mission started and give you 2 points of context. And then I'm going to talk about last year was actually the 80th anniversary of the Halyard mission. So they talked about the OSS. There were 3 OSS operatives that parachuted into the Pranjani area in late July, early August. They, when they parachuted in, they expected to find 50 airmen. And they were going to develop a plan to rescue those 50 airmen. When they got there, they found over 250 airmen. But they still came up with a plan. The airfield that was shown there, and we'll show you to you later, was built by the villagers and the airmen that were there with picks and shovels and cars. Of course, they didn't have heavy equipment back in the day, so it was basically by hand. In order to build that airfield, they had to make it strong enough for that kind of plane to land. That's a pretty heavy plane. So with sand and gravel, they built the airfield. Let me fast forward to August 9th, 1944. This was the first night of the rescue. It was a nighttime rescue. There were 72 airmen and citizens that were going to be rescued. What they did was, in this case, the kids got to have some fun. They like to go out and light the haystacks to create light for the C-47 to see the landing strip. There was 4 C-47s coming in. The first one came in, landed, and before they could come to the stop, they realized they were going to run out of airfield, and they had to take back off. This was very discouraging to the villagers and to the airmen that were down there, because at that point in time they said, this is not going to work. There's no way we're going to be able to do this. So they got a little, depressed. They flew off into the darkness of the night, and they thought that was it, that mission was over. About 10, 15 minutes later, a second C-47 came in. The wheels hit the ground, and it was able to come to a stop. Subsequent to that, 2 more came in, was able to come to a stop. The first C-47 that had to take back off circled back around, and what they believe happened, of course, is he communicated to the other 3 of where to hit the ground soon enough to give you room. It landed, and all 4 were there. Because the airfield was so short, these things are big enough to carry 30, 40 personnel. But because the field was so short and the planes were so heavy, the OSS commander of the mission only allowed them to take 12. So out of the 72 that were expected to be rescued that night, they only were able to take 48. However, they successfully took off, and those 48 were returned to Italy. But it was still discouraging, because they figured, we can't sustain this nighttime run for the duration to get all these airmen out of here, and they thought that the mission would be scrapped. Some of the airmen and some of the villagers, they spent the night in the forest up there by the airfield. Some despondent about what had happened. About 8 o'clock, August 10th, 8 o'clock in the morning, they were laying there resting, and they heard a rumble of planes. What they thought was the Germans had discovered them, and they were coming to bomb them. As the planes got closer, they realized that, hey, there's Americans. And what they saw was about 30 fighters and about 14 C-14s. As it got closer, they recognized there were P-39s and P-51Cs. The P-51Cs had red tails. It was the Tuskegee Airmen leading escort of the C-47s into Pranyani to help with the rescue. So the airmen flew in, and there's something that they do, they waggle their tails when they come in, to acknowledge the people on the ground. Did a couple of stunts, and then they flew off, and their mission was to strafe. Everybody remember what I said strafing was? Okay. Any German garrison, property, anything German within a 50-mile radius. This was to provide distraction so that the C-47s could rescue the airmen. And I'm sure they had fun doing that. So. That went on until late December, so 5 months they did these rescues. One of the OSS operatives that was there credits the success of this mission to the Tuskegee Airmen. He truly believes that they would not have been successful without their efforts. So to me, that's huge. It's something I didn't know about. It's something I just recently learned, so it was a big thing to me. So back to the April visit with me and my wife, Cynthia. We went there. They invited me to Serbia for the 80th anniversary, and at first I'm like, Serbia? I don't know nothing about Serbia. I don't think I'm going to Serbia. And my wife was like, I'm not going to Serbia. And my friends were a little concerned too. So it wasn't until the last week of July 28th actually, that I finally decided to make the trip. And I'm glad I did. But again, Cynthia's like, you're not going by yourself. You need to find somebody to go with. So I hired a security team to go with me and provide protection. So it was a 4-day, 5-day trip, 3 days it was a whirlwind. It was quite the experience and quite the busy trip. We left out of San Francisco on a Tuesday we were supposed to leave at 5. The plane didn't leave till 5:35, so we missed our connection in Frankfurt, Germany. Ended up staying in Frankfurt, Germany airport for 6 hours. We were supposed to arrive in Serbia at 5:30 p.m. their time. There's 9 hours difference between here and there, so you can do the math, I can't. What time that was supposed to be. We did not get to Serbia till midnight. While in Frankfurt, I received a text from Ranko Risko, one of the board members. He said, "Kenneth, are you going to do the TV show in the morning?" And at the time, I was like, nobody told me about a TV show. Right now, I'm stressed and tired. We're waiting in the airport. I was like, no, I'm not doing no TV show. I did the TV show. Go ahead, Johnny. Huh? Don't worry about it. It was a secret force. Yeah. Save your questions. This is the studio. This is the studio where we did it. And just let me backpedal for 1 second. After Cynthia and I went to Mesa, Ranko sent me a text via WhatsApp. He said, "Kenneth, you are in the Serbian Times." And he showed a picture of me and Cynthia in front of that C-47 and an article that was written in Serbian about me. He says, "You are now a celebrity." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So this is the studio where it was. And go ahead, Johnny. That's a picture of me in the studio with John Capella, and this guy's name is Mr. Cole, and that's the host of the show. This is a national show. It's much like Good Morning America. So it's all over Serbia. So now I am a celebrity. So keep it there. So after the show, we had a couple hours to kill. So me and my security guards went to this courtyard across the street from the hotel we were staying at, and people were coming up to me, asking me for autographs, telling me to tell my story, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's not true. So after that, we had a couple hours to kill, and we ended up touring the Royal Palace of Serbia.
By your father and his forces, exactly. So this is special, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
We all appreciate it.
It's quite a story that this was hidden. This rescue operation was hidden. But not only that, it was also hidden when Dragan Mihailovic was awarded by Truman the highest decoration. They didn't want to upset the comrade here, who was a newfound friend of the United States, United Kingdom. But it was the British really who were not too good, should we say. NKVD, the predecessors of KGB, had penetrated completely SOE, Strategic Operations Executive of the United Kingdom. And also, there was famous people involved who were Cambridge and Oxford. They were all recruited to be part of NKVD. And everything was doctored. Yeah, there was a civil war here going on. But there was a war also against the Nazis who came here, and it's quite a sad story, but nothing like the truth, and thanks to John, the truth came out when he was military attaché here. It's a great show. Thank you.
Thanks. Yep. Thank you.
So this individual is Prince Alexander, and that's his son to the right who is being groomed to take his place. The Royal Palace during World War II was actually occupied by the Germans. His father was in exile, and the Germans took over the palace. Now the prince is just a figurehead in the country. They're a unitarian country. So the president, they do vote. The president is actually head of state. The prime minister is the head of the government. And the prince is just a figurehead. Just real quick, I want to show you a couple things that happened while they were under German occupation. We got to tour the palace. The palace is fabulous. They have so many brilliant artifacts, paintings, sculptures, what have you. But this is a bad part of it. I don't know if you can see in this picture up here at top, Jesus Christ, he's got a hole in his head. The Germans, I mean, that ceiling is high. That's why we did this first picture. You can go to the next one, Johnny. The Germans actually shot a hole in his head. They faced it. They decimated and defaced a lot of things in that palace. Another one showed scarring up of this picture here and poking his eyes out and things of that nature. This is where they actually did their worship in the palace. So then that evening, the same evening, so we get there Thursday night, midnight. Thursday morning, I do the TV show. Thursday afternoon, we tour the palace. Thursday evening, this is the Serbian National Library. We attend the National Library for the unveiling of a commemorative stamp recognizing the 80th anniversary of the Halyard mission. Johnny? That's the stamp right there. So that was a reception, took most of the night. We drank a rakia, socialized with the folks, and had a good time. The next day, there's my security guards. Stand up, man. You know the one on the left. Hey, you think the Serbians would mess with those three? That's 3/4 of the brain trust. The other quarter is watching over us, making sure we're safe. All right. So this picture was taken actually out in front of the House of Parliament. This was actually Friday morning before we headed out to Pranjani. We attended a parliament meeting at the House of Serbian Parliament. There, John Capella made his case for the 80th anniversary, the Halyard mission, to be fully and officially backed by the government. Go ahead. So, Days of America, those flags were all over the place. And this is the parliament. Go ahead, Johnny. So inside the parliament, they had committees. This is not the official parliament. These are some visitors that I'll talk about a couple of them. But John Capella made his case, and they did accept and approve full government backing to annually celebrate and commemorate the Halyard mission. This gentleman right here is General John Harris. He's the head of the Ohio National Guard. 17,000 members in the Ohio National Guard. When I saw him at our hotel, he introduced and talked to him, but when I saw him at subsequent events, I was wondering, why is Ohio the only state that's here? Does anybody know why? So I asked John Capella, how come they're the only state here? And he said, well, Ohio State is the American-Serbian Defense Partnership. They have a partnership with Serbia. And then he goes on to say, every state in the nation has a partnership with a foreign country. Does anybody know whose California's is? Actually, it's Ukraine. Yeah. Maybe that's why they're putting up such a good fight. The gentleman over here is the ambassador to Serbia, this gentleman right here, Chris Hill. Actually, his tenure just ended on January 10th, so I'm not sure who's going to be taking his place. When we left the parliament, we had a 2-hour ride to Pranjani, where we were going to spend the next 2 nights and where the ceremony was going to take place. An hour into that, we made a stop. Johnny had a taste for a Big Mac. I don't know what the hell happened. No, I actually left at this. There's a gas station and a mart where you can get drinks and stuff, and that's what they stopped for. And we just wanted to show you that there is McDonald's in Serbia. We didn't try it because we didn't want to take any chance. They might have had them onions that were recalled.
One bit editorial comment. The descendants of the bombers that we met, they insisted on stopping for Mickey D.
Actually, they did. They came back with bags of fries and burgers. And me, Dino, and Johnny was like, yeah, we'll pass on that. So the next stop was Pranyani. This is an Orthodox church in Pranyani. That was our first stop when we got there.
He is happy that you also respect this place, these people who saved your relatives, and so.
Raduje me što je crkva uvek posredi nas, da širimo ljubav među sobom, da širimo istinu i da širimo prave vrednosti ljudske.
The church here is to spread love, spread the truth and real values among people.
Ovaj narod ovde ima čvrst obraz i čvrst karakter, tako da i pre 80 godina, a i danas zna uvek da sagleda i teškoću i nevolja brata svoga, ma koje nacije, ma koje vere bio, i da izađe u susret i da mu koliko može i pomogne i olakša sve teškoće životne.
These people here have a very strong character, and 8 years ago and today they're always willing to help, and no matter where you're from, they want to help.
Nadam se iskreno da će poštovanje između nas i vas uvek poštovati se i uvek živeti.
And he hopes that the respect between you and these people will always live.
Dobro došli.
And welcome.
Izvolite.
Please.
So the gentleman that was doing the translation, that was Renko Risko. He's on the board of the mission. He's the individual that contacted my daughter. From there, we went inside, took a look around. It's a fabulous church. You can see how beautiful that church is. They are, again, they're Orthodox Christians. That's their religion, and it was a beautiful church. So inside, we're going to see a video. He's going to talk about this picture right here, which is the same picture that's over there. It's called an icon. John Capella was approached by an artist and decided to design an icon to honor Pranyani and honor the Halyard mission. So this was actually Friday. Okay, work with it. This was actually Friday, September 20th. That was my father's birthday. He would have been 106. So it was even more amazing to be there during his birthday.
Those of you familiar with Orthodoxy, you know that icon is very, very important. Iconography, icons are very important to the faith. And so our idea was to donate a small icon showing respect to Sveti Sava, who is the patron saint of this church. And there are many churches that depict the saints holding something of great value and importance, whether it's a church and so our idea was that he would be holding the C-47, which came to rescue the airmen. Well, the iconographer, the gentleman who produces these icons, came back to us with an idea, and his idea was to incorporate the history of the rescue mission with the traditional iconography. Really, everything on here is symbolic in a way. So this is Sveti Sava, again, this patron saint of this church. Here you're standing in this building right here, right? This is the church here in Primony. These are two other churches that are in this area, Ravnagora, the hills surrounding Primony. So all the people here are somehow associated, or community members, family members of Serbs that helped rescue the airmen. Some of them are the airmen today. I'll just point out a few. I know it's hard to see. I'll let you look at it closer. So there's an older woman sitting in a chair here. This is Pavlija Papic. So you'll meet her family tomorrow, who still lives today, across the street from the airport, right? From the airfield. When I met her, she was one of the first people I met. She told us stories of seeing the airplanes flying over, bombers going over. She told us about bringing water to the airmen. This here is Charles Davis. So this depicts him as an older man, but he's holding a little baby. Because when they were hiding, he was taking care of the child while they were out in the field. The gentleman behind him is the baby grown up, who unfortunately has since passed, actually. But he was one of the first hosts that hosted us here. And, all day, but Ken, so this is your dad. This is your dad giving a little boy the boots. And that little boy, Mr. Yankovic, who we'll meet tomorrow, is actually depicted here as an older man. So this
Today, today is my father's birthday, actually, today. He would have been 106 today.
Happy birthday. And then here they are preparing the airfield. This is Draža Mihajlović here. And then being guided onto the plane through the Golden Door to Salvation. So here's another church, and there's water behind it. Why do you think that is?
Italy?
Yeah, exactly. So it goes back to Italy. So this is setting.
So that was the church in Pranyani. That was our first stop when we got there. It was getting a little late because the Parliament meeting took a little longer than John Capella had wanted to. This is the picture of the icon. Again, it is over there. It's a beautiful, beautiful photograph. Explanation of all the individual things that are on there. Everything in there has something to do with the Halyard mission rescue. From there, we went to the airfield. He wanted to show us the airfield before it got crowded. Saturday was going to be the ceremony. It was going to be full. So he took us to the airfield. It was a little darker than he wanted it to be. This is a picture of the airfield. You can see the ceremonial site. This was built as a replica to the C-47s. This is the airstrip, parking lot, helipad, what have you. It's hard to gauge how short that airfield is from the picture, but it's a beautiful, beautiful site, what they did to that. Yes. Hold.
Is that flat? Is that icon flat? Or is it I can't.
The icon, you talking about this?
No, the plane.
It's not flat.
It's not flat?
No, it's not flat. Yeah. They won't play? Damn. Well, this was a drone shot, an overview video. Whatever you went out, if you went out and play it, I really like to see. Anyway, this is the airfield here where they landed. To answer Diane's question, that is not flat. You can come up down there, and then they have a lookout session there. They have podium stands where you could stand, where we stood for the video. The airfield, again, I reiterate, it was built by the villagers and the airmen. Basically with horse and buggy and picks and shovels. And it had to be made strong enough for those C-47s to land. So you could imagine the amount of work that went into doing that. So the ceremony took place, this was Friday, Saturday, well, this was actually a couple years ago. The previous picture was from Friday night. Saturday morning was the ceremony. And the ceremony took place here. There was hundreds of people there. They had the Royal Air Force Guard, the U.S. Air Force, the Ohio National Guard, the Serbian Army, diplomats, and the like. After the ceremony, this is a picture of me with two individuals. The person sitting down with the boots is Mr. Yankovic. He's the 14-year-old boy that my father gave his boots to. So he is now 94 years old. He's still alive. So what John Capella did, he had me reenact giving the boots to him in front of everybody. The lady to the left, her name is Maha Gocevic. She's actually right now the Minister of Culture. Both these individuals, well, his father, her grandfather, sheltered my father in their homes. And when I say that they sheltered him, the Serbians sacrificed a lot. They would actually give up their homes and they would sleep outside with the goats and the pigs and the hens and give up their homes to shelter the airmen in. This gentleman right here is Boris. He's actually Mr. Yankovic's grandson. He told us that Mr. Yankovic has told this story over 100 times. He was so proud of what happened and what they did that he can't help but keep telling the story. So we have an additional, he has something else to tell now. So after the ceremony and after we had that talk, we took a ride. Mr. Yankovic actually took us to his home, which was less than a mile from the memorial site. Going down the road back to where we had the reception. This is the home that my father stayed in. Unfortunately, Mr. Yankovic forgot the keys to the house, so we couldn't get in. But, you know, we got to see. He actually still has the keys to the house. They said they left it. This right here is where Mr. Yankovic and his brother slept in the back of the house while my father slept in their bed. That's what they gave up. And right next to that is another shack where maybe his parents stayed, we're not sure. So they gave up their bed so that my father could sleep in the bed. This is a picture of, you're looking southeast from Pranyani here. I wanted to show you this just to show you how mountainous and hilly the terrain was. And it's beautiful country, by the way. But southeast is where my father went down in a place called Krajevo. It was about 40 miles south of where he got rescued. So through horse and buggy, 2 nights, don't have the exact duration of that trip. And he may have stayed in some other villages because there were other villages in between. But anyway, that's the terrain he had to traverse to get to Pranyani. This is a marker. So what the Halyard Mission Foundation is doing is they're developing these markers to identify a historical trail for the Halyard mission. I think he's in the works of developing a marker for that house that we showed you and maybe the house where Maha kept my father. Well, more to come with that. Being in this nonprofit, they got to raise the money to do those kind of things. This is looking northwest down to the village of Pranyani. Again, you can see how hilly and mountainous it is. This barn was used during the war to house and shelter airmen. You can see now it's painted up really nice. It's actually been converted. There's 3 rooms there. That's where Dino, Johnny, and I stayed downstairs. And then upstairs, there's some more rooms. The gentleman that owns this property, this is where we stayed. This is where they had the reception after the celebration. he told us the story of his father, his father or grandfather? Grandfather. His grandfather was killed by Tito's group after the war. So Tito made a lot of promises to the Chetniks to try to bait them into supporting him. And of course, when they did, he actually didn't hold up to his promises and killed a lot of Chetniks, a lot of Serbians, and eventually killed Mihalovic, actually. Arrested, tried, and executed him. So, so anyway, that's what we got to stay. It was really nice. The people there are so hospitable. It's incredible how hospitable they are.
Captain Walker gave his boots to 15-year-old Dragulju Jankovic. We're honored that Mr. Kenneth Walker, the son of Captain James Walker, is here today to present a slightly more mature Mr. Jankovic with a new pair of boots.
Serbians sacrificed a lot to rescue my dad, and it's pretty overwhelming. During his time here, he was actually treated better by the Serbian people than he, at that time, than he was being treated at home. And I think that says a lot. They sacrificed their homes, their food, whatever have you, and they didn't have a lot. It's incredible to find a culture that would sacrifice as much as they did. You know, they lost a lot of people, but they saved a lot of people. Thank you so much for letting me share this story with you. It was an extremely incredible trip. Two of my best friends were able to traverse it with me. Without them, Cynthia wouldn't let me go. Ben would have loved it. He's the quarter brain that's looking out over us. So, any questions? Yes.
How many other African Americans were there through that?
Good question.
How many other African Americans were a part of this honor mission that got rescued?
So, my father was the only 332nd Airman that was rescued by the Serbs. He was the only one in the village. One of the reasons they had to keep him separate from the others, at this point, had nothing to do with segregation, because a lot of the Serbians had never seen a black air fighter. But it was just to keep him protected. They actually assigned him a guard because they knew that if he was found out, they knew he was an American. So they actually brought a Serbian Chetnik in that knew French, because my father knew a little bit of French, and assigned him to guard him during the duration. There was actually one thing in the story that I left out. He went to a barbershop to get a haircut, and his guard was sitting over in the corner, and 3 chairs down was a German officer getting a haircut. They didn't believe he was recognized, but in case he was, that night they moved him again. So, but good question. That was, yes.
How long was your dad there before he came back to the United States?
You mean after the rescue?
Yes.
Well, he was there till after the war, so 1940.
She meant in Serbia. In Serbia. How long was
39 days. He was shot down on July 22nd, and he was recovered on August 20-something, 39 days. Yeah.
So he got shot down then, but he wasn't rescued. What did he do in that time? And did he even know where he was?
No, he was rescued by the Serbs, and he was kept protected by them in that time, moving from place to place, helping the Serbs do whatever they could do, playing with Mr. Jankovic as a 14-year-old boy, and it's probably why he remembers the story. He actually developed such a good relationship with some of these Serbians that the gentleman that actually rescued him, the Chetnik army personnel that rescued him, the name escapes me, forgive me that, but in 1971, that individual relocated to Chicago here in the United States and spent the next 20 years looking for my father. And they actually reunited in '93. And he said also that a lot of his friends and family members were killed after the war by Tito's groups. So.
Did his plane survive?
No, not, absolutely not. Yes?
So you said there were a lot of other airmen there that were rescued. Were they in the same situation as your father? In other words, the plane went down?
So most of the airmen were from bomber groups. The bombers had 10 to 11 personnel flying them. And during the Plowetsi bombing, we were losing hundreds and hundreds of bombers and thousands of airmen because of that. You figure one bomber is 10 people. There was one attack on Plowetsi back in 43, I think it was August of 43, that they call it Black Sunday. On that mission, they lost over 53 bombers. So you can imagine, that's 500 people. And it was costing the war a lot. So you lose one bomber and 10 people, or you lose one fighter and one person. Yeah. Yes?
When he parachuted out of his plane, did he sustain any injuries?
He did not. As a matter of fact, he asked that when my dad parachuted out of his plane, did he sustain any injuries? Which you would think between 1,000 and 500 feet that he would, right? But he did not sustain any injuries. As a matter of fact, when he returned to Ramatelli, he hadn't even lost any weight. They fed him. They took such good care of him that he didn't lose any weight. Yes.
How did your mom feel about this? I mean, not being in contact with your father.
Well, this was before their relationship. So just to touch on that, my father got married twice to two different women. The first one was on August 3rd, 1950 in France. That woman didn't understand what they were saying, so told him that we're doing this again. And they did it again on August 6th in Germany. So our parents have 2 anniversaries. Wow. And it was the same woman. One more thing I'd like to add, the Halyard Mission Foundation, John Capella is the president. I showed you Rinko Rang, he's on the board. Their mission is to find family members and connect them with the folks in Serbia or teach them the story. There were 40 family members at this 80th anniversary. And when I say that, there was one family that brought like 10 people, so 10 family members though. To date, and I may have been the last one that they've found so far, I'm not sure, they have found 50 family members. Wow. Their goal is to find 500. 432 U.S. airmen, 82 allies is what we're found. So that is their goal. And they have presentations and things all across the nation during the whole year. As a matter of fact, I talked to John Capella last week, and he was back in Serbia doing some correspondence and whatever it is he does over there. He actually has an apartment over there. He goes over there so much. So, anybody else? Well, thank you so much for having me. I really, thank you.